Welcome back. The trial of Oscar Pistorius heads into day number 8 in South Africa. The Blade Runner's response to forensic evidence. Later in the show, we'll talk to legal expert Michelle Suskauer.
And Republican David Jolly narrowly defeated Alex Sink in a Florida special election for the U.S. House. Is this race a midterm bellwether, as so many pundits argue? Newsmax White House correspondent John Gizzi's take later in our program.
And coming up, we'll take a look at NATO and the United States' latest move to stem the violence in the Ukraine. What are they doing to monitor the crisis? Coming up in the show.
And we welcome you back for Hour 3 of America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
I'm John Bachman. Great to have everyone with us. Our top story this hour, some new information about that New Jersey honor student who is suing her parents. She's apparently moved back into the family home. 18-year-old Rachel Canning has also hired new legal representation. This week, a judge denied her request for immediate financial assistance from her parents. The teenager says her parents forced her out of the home, and she is now unable to support herself. Her parents say she left because she didn't want to follow their rules. The honor student lost in the first round of court, but is the fight really over? Joining us right now to discuss all this is legal attorney and legal analyst Michelle Suskauer. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Well, counselor, fill us in. What is the latest in this ongoing family drama?
Well, the latest is that she's back home, which is what the court said last week, really recommended. Go home and try to work this out. This is not the right forum to air all of these private situations. And she hired new counsel. The attorney that she had before actually was her best friend's father, and he was really beating the drum, saying that she should be a declared unemancipated minor, meaning she should have child support, weekly child support, as well as paying for college, as well as paying for her private school, her gas, etc. So the court was not happy with this at all. Number one, he said, you need to go home, you need to work this out. And the real main question is, really, what role does government have in trying to police private financial affairs of a family that's intact? We're not talking about divorce court here.
Yeah, and that's a question I guess we got to ask is, how does it get to this point? I mean, you obviously have different opinions from different lawyers out there. If a kid comes to you, Michelle, and says, hey, I want to sue my parents, and the circumstances are similar to this case, what do you say?
Let's see if we could try to have some mediation before we go ahead and jump to a lawsuit. And I'm not sure if that really happened. We're so litigious. I mean, this really just reinforces the whole feeling of we're just too litigious here. And there should have been some mediation, as opposed to children having a fight with their parents and then they go to court to try to sue them for money. I have a senior in high school, and that would be just the most horrific thing that I could think of.
Now, this whole situation, and she, as you mentioned, she's back home. But Michelle, it still leads to that great question, almost one, I guess, for a legal essay, what if? If the judge had gone the other way in this case, would this have set an entirely new legal precedent?
Well, I think that other states could have looked to this, but certainly it would be done on a state-by-state, situation-by-situation basis. But again, taking what you're saying to its natural progression, it is a terrible slippery slope. What are we doing? My parents didn't buy me an Xbox, and so I'm going to sue them now. So I think that it's something that was legal precedent. It's something that we really have not seen before, and the court really was trying to shut this down. And it looks like now there's a trial date next month. It doesn't look like this case is going to see the light of day in terms of trial. It looks like with a new lawyer going home, we're hoping that this is something that's resolved.
You spoke about our litigious age. Given your encyclopedic knowledge of different court cases, Michelle, do you ever recall another case like this one?
Not in recent memory. Certainly I'm sure that there are other kids that are trying to say that they're emancipated, but this is as an unemancipated minor. Not that I am aware of, and I was trying to do some research to see if I could find anything. But this obviously in New Jersey, this was really a case of first impression.
Now she's 18, right? At this
Right.
point, so she's technically not a minor. Did the court still sees her as a minor in this case?
Well, that's what she was seeking. She was seeking child support in that because she was relying on her parents to pay for her private school, to support her both with pocket money as well as food, as well as gasoline for her vehicle, and promises that she was going to have her college paid for. So you're right, she's not quote unquote a minor, but she was seeking that type of support. And I think it was at least $400 or $500 a week that she was seeking, which is a lot. I would like to get that as well.
It would be a bad deal. To the larger point about this instead of seeking emancipation, seeking a status of unemancipation, what happens culturally eventually can have an impact in the courts. And what we've seen legislatively now, as children can stay on their parents' health insurance to age 26, are we seeing, let's coin a new phrase, the unemancipation of young American adults de facto?
Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting point. Because of what's going on financially and the economy, I think, as we have seen, children are staying home longer, or they're moving back in, still on their parents' payroll. But again, what we're talking about here, and that of course is a voluntary thing. Parents will do whatever they can to assist their kids. But what we're talking about here is the court's intervention, where we're trying to have legal enforcement of a financial obligation of an 18-year-old or higher. And that's something that's different. That we need you to enforce this, that you have to pay for my college, you have to pay for my car expenses, you have to pay for my private school. That's something that's different.
All right, well, let's move to a different courtroom in a different part of the world, in South Africa. We're talking about the Oscar Pistorius case, making headlines, of course, the trial of the Olympic athlete. In the news almost every single day, a riveting case here because it involves a tragic incident. He's claiming that he shot her in self-defense because he thought it was an intruder here. But we've seen a lot of emotion from Oscar Pistorius here, crying, breaking down, getting physically ill there as he's heard the testimony. As a defense attorney, is that, how do you coach your clients when they're in these situations? Does that help or hurt his case?
Well, personally, I think it helps his case. I mean, normally what we tell our clients is, look, have a poker face, try to be unemotional about it. And I explain that to the jury. Look, I'm explaining to my client that it's not appropriate to show that type of behavior. But in this particular case, this was somebody that he loved, that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. And this is a horrific, what he's claiming to be a horrific accident. So much so that it has literally made him physically ill. So no, I don't think that that's going to hurt him. I don't know what's going to happen, given his stature in South Africa. I really don't know what is going to happen in terms of whether the jury's is going to be swayed because of who he is, or against him because of who he is.
It's interesting because there's no jury in this case. There's the judge and the two assistants is how it works in the South African legal system. So emotion, you think would be removed entirely from the judge's decision.
You would think so, and you would hope so. But how do you, and again, that's something that judges are instructed and juries are instructed to in this country. It doesn't matter. You're not supposed to have sympathy for one side or the other. But I don't know. I mean, we're talking about people. Are they able to split aside exactly who he is and say, this is, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to look at the facts in the case? You know what, we can't get into their heads, so we don't know how they're going to handle who he is. But this is not someone who's just your average citizen.
Does Oscar Pistorius to South Africa today, does that rank where O.J. Simpson was 20 years ago in that trial?
Well, I think that's a very good point, because he was absolutely beloved. And I think that, the same situation. Plus you have, because it's not just that he was such an icon, but also because of his disability. I think people around the world really hold him to a completely different standard. They love him.
Absolutely. Everybody was cheering for him during the Olympics, and now we see him in this light. Striking to see the difference here.
And the latest thing that was going on is about whether or not he had his prosthetic legs on at the time he was trying to break the door down. That's the latest, because I guess the original statement was that he didn't have his prosthetic legs on, and I guess that it's now that maybe he did. So it's sort of up in the air. There's a lot of confusing testimony, and I don't know what's going to happen.
That's why it's so riveting. We'll have more on this trial as it proceeds as well.
Michelle, it's great to have you with us,
Great.
and we appreciate you hanging around
Sure.
for a while. And we want to hear from you, of course. Your best arguments as you take a look at our legal docket today. You can participate at Twitter, hashtag America's Forum, Newsmax TV. Also, you can visit us at facebook.com/Newsmax and send us your email comments. Our address, connect@newsmaxtv.com.
Attention.